Anjelica Huston is with us this morning. She's the author of a new two-part memoir. The first book comes out today. It's called A Story Lately Told, Coming of Age in Ireland, London, and New York. It's published by Scribner. That's an imprint of Simon Schuster, which, by the way, is a division of CBS. But before we speak with Anjelica, here's part of Lee Cowan's profile from a recent edition of CBS Sunday Morning.
She was born heir to a Hollywood dynasty.
You're so dumb, there's nothing to compare you with.
It started with her grandfather, Walter Huston.
You're so dumb, you don't even see the ridges you're treading on with your own feet.
Who won an Oscar for The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. It was directed by Anjelica's father, John Huston, who took home an Oscar, too. Growing up, did you feel that the family name was a bit of a burden?
No, I always liked being a Huston. And I always felt like it was my right, and it was my birthright, and it was who I was.
Acting is in her blood. Over the course of more than 50 movies, she's played some pretty imposing characters. Like her Oscar-nominated role as the con artist in The Grifters.
You're working some angle, and don't tell me you're not, because I wrote the book.
You're one to talk. You still running playback money for the mob?
That's me. That's who I am.
And a ghoulish mortician in the Addams Family.
Don't torture yourself, Gomez. That's my job.
It's my job. Anjelica Huston joins us at the table. Hello,
Hi,
Anjelica Huston. I got this book, and I immediately said, where's the Jack Nicholson part? Where's the Jack Nicholson part? And guess what? There's no Jack Nicholson part here, because you're saving that for another time.
That's right.
But are you surprised, because you're the only one at that table, to my knowledge, unless Nora has another side we don't know, that's been with Jack Nicholson? So, in that way, are you surprised that so many people are fascinated with the relationship between the two of you?
I don't know. I think obviously he's a very fascinating man, and people like to know details. So I'm not totally
Fascinated to men and women.
Yes, indeed. Men love Jack almost as much as women love Jack.
How long did you date?
Well, dating, that's a funny word, but we lived together for 17 years.
Wow.
On and off, a little bit on and off.
But you know what was so fascinating to me about this story, about your story? Number one, you've had an amazing life. We've heard so much about your dad, but this really was a love letter about your mother. Your mom was really ahead of her time.
She was. She was incredibly beautiful. She was an ex-ballerina. One of the pleasures of writing this book was talking about my mother, because my dad gets a lot of attention, and my mother really deserved it. She was incredibly special, very beloved to me, and I lost her early. So it's important to me to be able to talk about her.
You talk about actors, though, and how people end up choosing that profession, and you say a lot of it comes from the childhood that they had. How so?
Well, I think a lot of actors, and indeed a lot of artists, spend lone time when they're little, and
unhappy childhoods?
Not necessarily unhappy, but time spent in contemplation. And I grew up in the west of Ireland, which was quite a remote place, and my best friend was the mirror, and you know, I was accused of vanity, but I think children really look in the mirror to see who they are. Yeah.
But you said it wasn't about narcissism, though, for you. You said at an early age your mom and dad said to you, look, you're probably not going to be a femme fatale, which I went, ouch, when I read that. I mean, so you really struggled, you write about, with your looks, but yet you grew up modeling and felt very powerful in front of the camera.
I've always had this attitude of, you know, don't tell me what I can't do. And when anyone sort of takes me to task over that kind of thing, my immediate response is "Watch me," which is the title of my next book.
Watch me?
Watch me. Watch me.
I adored your dad, as you know.
Thank you.
What do you want us to understand about him in this memoir?
Well, one of my pet peeves is when my father is described as Hemingway-esque, because my father was very much who he was. He wasn't like anybody else, really. He was an adventurer, very cultured, but at the same time he was a countryman. He was raw. He had big appetites. He was a lion. He was the biggest beast in the jungle.
You guys could like, didn't
Anjelica, he was tough, though. You write about your dad hitting you.
Well,
hitting him
it
in
only
the face.
happened once.
Well,
but
thank goodness
it
for
was
that. But
impressive.
no,
yes.
it was very impressive. And you said he was like a boxer, so he really walloped you.
Yeah.
He was a tough guy.
He was
with
a
you.
tough guy, and I think I was, in his eyes, I was acting provocatively, because even though he was a very Renaissance man, he was a little old-fashioned when it came to me.
But then you also describe in the book a fishing trip with your father.
Yes, this is sort of towards the end of the book, where I've made a bad choice in terms of boyfriends, and we go away on a fishing trip to Mexico with Dad, a horrible fishing trip that ended quite well in that he helped me say goodbye to the problematic boyfriend.
Was that but wasn't Jack Nicholson?
No.
Yeah.
No. This book has no Jack.
Yeah.
What made him a genius, though? I mean, really, your dad, beyond the lifestyle and beyond the fact that he was a Renaissance man.
Yeah. My father once replied to a question, what do you think is the most important thing in the world? And he replied, interest. Yes. And I think interest. He was always wondering about things, always trying to find out. I remember one of his, and I mention it in the book, one of his favorite things was to find out whether, you knew whether lightning came from above or below. He was scientifically inclined. He was historically inclined.
And is that what's in you from your father, the sense of interest and curiosity?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Anjelica Huston, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.